Today's video is going to be a field guide by Waptek for 2026 for you to find a cheap tape player or more on Amazon. Now we're going to be doing a couple of tricks, not very much tricks, but we're going to sort by price and then give a minimum limit on how much money we're willing to spend, which is apparently very important because Amazon will show you irrelevant results until you give up and let them just tell you what to buy in shitification. So anyway, from $18 and up, we're going to be putting our limit at $99. And depending on when you're watching this video, you need to make it $15 and make it $20 for your minimum, but keep it at no more than $100. Trust me on this, please. So we mostly have just two mechanisms, an auto stop and an auto reverse cassette player. If you're not aware of it, an auto stop is made so that when you play a tape, it comes to a point where it stops, at least on one side, and then it physically comes to a stop and it has to disengage the motor and let the tape go so that it doesn't keep damaging the tape. And then the other method is for it to come to a stop and instead auto reverse. And as you might imagine, it is possible to make an auto reverse deck and alter it slightly if you make the design fluid enough to be auto stop, auto reverse, or other, and or continuous play. And this is the reason you'll see really only one mechanism being used different ways. And depending on which one you buy, an auto stop may have better quality to it because it's not putting a bunch of effort into being auto reverse and having to deal with things a specific way that is required under those conditions. We have ranging of them called recorders, players, and other misused words and expressions and statements, all the way to perfectly accurate descriptions. So let's get to it really quickly here. When we do our sort, on the lower left here, you're going to see price, and it says $18 to $99. You need to do that. On the right, you have to hit low to high, and it will fight you. Amazon is run by evildoers, okay? Now, when we do that, we've cut it off to where we see things that are not related at all, but includes the numbers of the word MP3, okay? But it includes the word cassette because cartridges and cassette mean the same thing in different languages. Because this is a site, after all, that has to deal with people from all over the planet. Now let's scroll down and we're going to look at a couple of examples quickly. GPX portable cassette player, compatible with headphone, meaning it has headphone jack. Its sizes, requires two AA batteries, so it's 3-volt based, not included. And it comes with a red and black case, and that's it. Now, if we were to look at it, first thing, it has an AM/FM radio in it that it didn't mention in the description. It's got a tape player. It obviously has a speaker, has a volume control, some buttons up here, a knob or two. And over here, the buttons are positioned almost dead center. If you're not aware of it, classic designed cassette players from most companies kind of settled into a set of patterns where they would put all of the main buttons that were used between all their versions they made in the same place so that you could hold them in your hand. And if you were right-handed, your thumb would go right here where we have this red spot. And your three main fingers, index, middle, and ring finger, would be used to control the buttons back here. Using any of the other buttons would be used for specific purposes like I have to stop right now and rewind, fast forward, or hit a record button. And it was very rare to have one of these things be a recorder, and especially rare if it would do stereo, and nearly impossible if it was a auto reverse and a recorder. Maybe not at the same time. That's the $18.09 model. That's not the one I'm recommending, but it very likely, although I can't prove it, may use exactly the same mechanism because almost everything here is laid out the same way. Let's scroll down. Again, that one is $18 and has AM/FM radio. It's probably a recorder, although I don't see it saying the word recorder. It's definitely a player, and it may or may not be auto reverse. I'm not going to open it because we're going to go on to the stereotypical ones, the two designs. The Reshow cassette tape player pops up. At one point or another, there was a GoFundMe or some other project to recreate classic cassette players, and to avoid copyrights and patent rules and problems, they were reverse engineering a group of different ones to make a universal mechanism. That was the story I heard from one place. Other places said other things. This one, if we look at it really closely, I'll get an image up in a minute. It has a pair of buttons on the right side here. We're going to call it right side. They're in a sequence from us backwards, two of them. Then one lone button, and then over here a set of direction buttons. And right here, what looks like a catch to open and close it is actually the play button, or the engage button that pushes the mechanism together and starts the whole affair. The second design, which again, these may be based on exactly the same design, going down here, we have this one. This one's pink, and it has buttons all in the center, like I was talking about, for your index fingers while you're carrying it, and it's almost identical to this layout. It even includes a speaker. And on the top you can see a tuner knob, AM, FM, and tape switch, or other, and a headphone plug, and it has a big red record button. And this may or may not be auto reverse. If they're unidirectional, meaning it goes one way and stops, auto stop design, sometimes those made better recorders, in fact most of the time, because it makes it simpler to put in an erase head, a record head, and a playback head in line because you have more places to put it. An auto reverse requires a lot more complexity, and or that you only record in one direction. This is our second type of design here, $18.99, and it's almost identical to this one here, with the buttons again in the center and no buttons off to the right or left side, and a very prominent record, playback, etc. button versus one that's subdued and almost looks like it's part of the case. A little bit more, we see this one. This is our third design in the $18 to $20 range, and this one has all the buttons lined up. I'm not going to open it because this one is significantly different and has a lot of variation, but we can see a microphone and a headphone jack here, and it says cassette player recorder on it for $18. As you may have noticed, we have a range where we have three somewhat distinct styles, where we have all the keys lined up, all the keys in a cluster for your three main fingers, and we have one where they're kind of all over the place as our re-show cassette tape player. They're all in the $18 to $20 range. And they're all equally bad or good because instead of calling them tape players, people refer to them as tape destroyers. Now let's the quiz. Is this a center cluster type? Is it scattered or is it in straight line? This is center cluster. Again, centered cluster of keys. Again, we see AM, FM radios and recorder mentioned and that sort of thing. Here's one from the back. It's got the cluster of them in the middle and the antenna. Now that you can't unsee it because I pointed it out, you'll notice that in the low end we get the piano key or straight line key thing there that's white. We get the black one with the central cluster of buttons. And now we get this one over here. I'm going to call it the re-show type. Okay. Now we're going to look at individual examples. Hopefully I'm not wasting too much of your time. This is the actual re-show cassette, and it doesn't really give us much details, but we can zoom in a little bit. There's our two buttons on the right. One of them is a rewind and one of them is a stop button. Then we get the next set of buttons right over there in the middle. We're going to show it in the middle, and that is one of the rewind or fast forwards. Then we get our play button, that's the dent or bump here, and behind it is the direction button and a couple other features. And it doesn't show the right side, so we'll have to look at the next one. That one goes for $18. Here we are at $24, and we get to see the interior. We have our capstan and pinch roller. I'm going to put it in the center in that floating image. Then we move over. This one says recorder in the title. That's the erase head. That's a magnet, a fixed standard static magnet that presses up against the tape only when you're erasing. When you press the record button, it mechanically pushes on it and pushes on the play button at the same time. Then we have the tape head, which is a quadraphonic or auto reverse, and it seems to have what looks almost like straight wires instead of shielded. And I'm going to point out that dent right there where the other piece of plastic is. It's just kind of hinted at, and it's where you would have, if you were doing a single direction, a optical sensor to determine that you've hit the end of the tape and stop recording. And then we have the pinch roller. And then right here on the far left, which I can barely show you, let me get it back here. On the far left in that center image that I'm able to float is the switch mechanism. When you press the direction switch, it swaps the wires around so the different part of the head is fed to the amplifier. Then we see the very prominent, very seemingly badly exposed electric motor that drives everything. And the rest of it's pretty much standard. Now, I want to point out that the mechanism looks like it's been chopped off halfway. That's not a photoshopping thing. That's literally how it's built. These were built by a company that originally these mechanisms were for prisons. The idea is you put give prisoners equipment that has see-through casings, they can't hide contraband in it. And/or, because it's half missing, this looks exactly like a tape duplicator mechanism that would be used by a record company. There would be hundreds of these lined up. They would have a little plug-in module on the left or the right, or maybe the top, and they would have a set of ganged button pusher mechanisms to use these to do audio duplicating or to be, like RCA doing this. That's not really how they did it, but a lot of smaller companies would do this. They'd buy a bunch of tape players and just rig them with an eraser magnet, or not do it and just use blank tapes in the first place and use the heads for recording heads. Here's another image of it here, a little clearer maybe. You get the idea. And no, it doesn't matter if it's copper or actually brass. Wheels involved, please don't pay attention to that. So that's our mechanism. It's got all the parts in it. And it can do a record function because it has that magnet in there. And there it is, and it's $24. Now we go to this one. This one is $24 or $25, but it refuses to say so. And this comes with an audio plug, microphone plug, volume control, tuning knob. The tuning readout is mechanical only, and there's our scale. And inside we see, yes, it's the same mechanism. And it has the same magnetic head right there in the middle of that image on our right. That's a permanent magnet, and it's made to where it erases one side, but it will play in both directions. It says auto reverse, and it also says, if we look here, it says auto reverse in here somewhere, and it'll also say it's a tape recorder. That's what it looks like, etc., etc. Let's move on down. And yes, these are photoshopped and, oddly enough, not AI for some reason. We can see the button layout that was, again, we have our 3 buttons on the far right side with 1 in the front and 2 in the back. There's the configuration. And then the normally just play only button has a record button. Again, just pushes a magnet in and activates a feature. It has the direction changer and the auto reverse mode selection. And okay, it exists. Now let's go on to the next one. This one is almost the same thing. It's got completely different styling, etc., but it's the same design. And again, do we see now you can't unsee it, the offset set of buttons that are not in a completely straight line, nor are they in a cluster. Okay, this is the most common mechanism, and then when we click on this, we see it's got a bit of velvet over the little electric motor. There's our switch mechanism in the far left. There's our pinch roller, etc., and then right there, right in the middle there, I'm going to put it, is our permanent magnet erase head again. So this is actually the original design that was sold as a real Walkman or whatever. This is what it was. And it would record one direction, maybe mono, maybe stereo, maybe complete garbage, but that's what the mechanism was. And they can retool it and redo it to where they can make it into a tape recorder, player, auto reverse, all the things, or take everything off and make it cheaper. And this one's going for, how much was this going for? Almost $40, $38. And here's yet another one. This is, again, you can't unsee it. That's the button pattern. And we're going to call that the reshow pattern. I don't know what else to call it. It has an actual name. The tape recorder geeks out there will have the make, model, and year for the design. I don't know if it's derivative or if it's a universal design they can turn into anything else they want. So again, that concludes our little field guide for 2026 of trying to find a tape player on Amazon. The one I would pick, because I'm assuming the tape player would just fail, and I'd be taking my chances, either buy the $18 bare bones one that does nothing else, or buy an $18 one that has every feature in it, with the word recorder being in quotes, in my opinion. And I wouldn't spend a lot of money on it. I wouldn't buy the more expensive one like this one, or even this one. But if I was going to buy one and found out the $18 one worked, I might buy one of these because it has extra features. So for about $18, you can get a tape player that might work, and you might want to buy the one that has all the extra features, which is basically just a radio, so you might be able to do it, and it might record. Whether it records in stereo or not, I don't know. They avoid that, and there's no standards preventing us from doing this, from preventing them from lying to us about what it really does, because Amazon doesn't really care about truth in advertising for real. So anyway, that's it. That's your field guide to the tape decks on it that are cheap only. Everything else, I'd recommend going on to eBay and looking for good designs and looking for someone who's got a good reputation. You take your chances. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. I hope this was useful, and I hope it wasn't too confusing for any of you. Bye.